Jack Miller stood at the viewport of the exploration vessel Horizon, watching the stars streak by. The ship had been mapping this sector for 3 weeks now. It was routine work, but Jack enjoyed the calm. At 34, he had served in the Navy for 12 years and earned his rank of lieutenant through hard work and quick thinking. "Lieutenant Miller, the captain wants you on the bridge," said a voice over the comm system. Jack straightened his uniform and made his way through the corridors. The Horizon wasn't a large ship, with a crew of only 28. Its mission was to survey planets in newly discovered star systems, looking for resources and potential colony sites. Captain Susan Wells nodded as Jack entered the bridge. "We're approaching the third planet in this system. Initial scans show it might have valuable minerals. I want you to lead the ground team." "Yes, ma'am," Jack replied. He had led many such missions before. 4 hours later, Jack and 3 crew members descended to the planet's surface in a small shuttle. The planet had breathable air but little plant life. Rocky Mountains rose in the distance under a pale blue sky. "Let's get the samples and be back for dinner," said Frank Carter, the team's geologist. He was always thinking about food. They worked quickly, setting up equipment and collecting soil and rock samples. Jack kept watch, his hand near his sidearm. Something about this place made him uneasy. It was too quiet. "Sir, I'm picking up some strange energy readings," said Diane Powell, checking her scanner. "They're coming from that ridge." Jack looked where she pointed. "Let's check it out. Frank, stay with the shuttle. Diane, you and Greg come with me." They hiked toward the ridge, scanners beeping more rapidly as they got closer. Suddenly, the ground shook. Jack looked up to see a massive ship appearing in the sky, its hull shimmering as it dropped some kind of cloaking technology. "Back to the shuttle, now!" Jack shouted, but it was too late. A beam of blue light shot down from the alien ship, hitting their shuttle. In seconds, the small craft was nothing but twisted metal. Frank's scream cut through the air, then silence. Before they could run, more beams targeted the ground around them. Not destructive this time, but capturing. Jack felt himself lifted off his feet. Unable to move as he floated upward toward the massive ship, the last thing he saw was the Horizon appearing. In orbit, then erupting in flames as the alien vessel fired upon it. Jack woke up in a cell. The walls were smooth and gray, with no visible door. A force field of some kind shimmered at one end. His uniform had been replaced with a simple gray jumpsuit, and heavy chains bound his wrists and ankles. He wasn't alone. Diane lay unconscious in the corner. Greg was nowhere to be seen. Jack checked Diane for injuries, finding only a small cut on her forehead. He tore a strip from his jumpsuit to clean it, then sat back against the wall to think. He needed to understand their situation before taking any action. An hour passed before the force field flickered and 3 tall figures entered. Jack stood up, chains rattling. The aliens were unlike anything in human records. They stood at least 7 feet tall, with gray-green skin covered in natural armor plates. Their 4 eyes blinked independently of each other, and their mouths were filled with sharp teeth. "The human is awake," said one, its voice surprisingly clear in English. "This one is a male." Jack realized they must have some kind of translation. "Technology. Who are you? Why have you attacked our ship?" The tallest alien stepped forward. "I am Commander Vrex of the Vraxian Collective. Your species has entered our territory without permission." "We didn't know," Jack said. "We're explorers, not invaders." Vrex made a sound like rocks grinding together, a laugh. "All species say this when first captured. Then we learn their true nature." The third alien approached Jack, studying him with, "All 4 eyes? This specimen appears weaker than the others we've collected. Look how thin the limbs are, how soft the skin." Jack remained silent, assessing his captors. They were clearly stronger than humans with natural armor, but they were also arrogant. "Take the female to the examination chamber," Vrex ordered. "This male will be processed for the labor camps." "No," Jack lunged forward, but the chains held him back. "Leave her alone." The aliens laughed again. "See how it struggles? Pathetic." 2. More Vraxians entered and took Diane away. She had begun to wake up and called out for Jack as they dragged her. "Your crew fought bravely," Vrex told Jack. "Your ship managed to send a distress signal before we destroyed it. But no help will come. No one has ever escaped the Vraxian Collective." Jack pulled at his chains again, feeling the metal cut into his wrists. "Save your strength, human," said the smallest Vraxian. "Those restraints are designed to hold creatures 3 times your size. Even our strongest captives cannot break them." They left him alone in the cell. Jack examined the chains more carefully now. They were attached to the wall and made of a strange metal, lighter than it looked but incredibly strong. Days passed. Jack lost count after the first week. They fed him once a day, a bland paste that tasted like wet cardboard. Sometimes they took him to different rooms for tests, measuring his strength, speed, and endurance. He never saw Diane or Greg again. More aliens were brought to the cells near him. Some looked almost human, while others were completely different creatures with multiple limbs, or made of what looked like living crystal. Jack learned from overheard conversations that the ship was heading to a planet called Vrax Prime, the homeworld of his captors. One day a new Vraxian entered his cell. This one wore elaborate coverings over its armor plates. "I am Chief Scientist Kralfex," it announced. "You are an interesting specimen, human. Your body is weak, yet your brain scans show complex activity." Jack said nothing. He had decided to speak as little as possible to reveal nothing while learning everything he could. "Your silence is pointless," Kralfex said. "We have studied many species. Humans will make excellent labor slaves. Strong enough to work, weak enough to control." Jack looked up, meeting the alien's 4 eyes with his 2. Kralfex seemed amused. "Do you think your people will come for you?" "Impossible. We are 50 light years from where we captured you, and soon will be hundreds more." "It doesn't matter where you take me," Jack finally spoke. "That's your first mistake." "Oh, and what is my mistake, little human in chains?" Jack smiled slightly. "Thinking these chains will hold me forever." All 4 of Kralfex's eyes blinked at once, a sign of surprise, Jack noted. Then the alien laughed. "I will enjoy watching your spirit break, human. They all break eventually." As Kralfex left, Jack closed his eyes and began to plan. He would watch. He would learn. He would wait for the right moment, and when that moment came, these aliens would learn why it was a mistake to underestimate humans. 3 weeks had passed since Jack arrived at the prison on Vrax Prime. The massive facility held thousands of aliens from dozens of worlds, all captured by the Vraxian Collective. Jack had been moved from the ship to a larger cell in the high-security section, still bound by the heavy chains. Each day followed the same pattern. Guards would take Jack to a laboratory where Kralfex and other scientists ran tests. They measured how much weight he could lift, how long he could run, how quickly he solved puzzles. They tested his blood, scanned his brain, and recorded his reactions to different stimuli. "Fascinating," Kralfex said one day as Jack completed a complex puzzle faster than expected. "Your species has surprising mental agility despite your physical limitations." Jack remained silent. He had spoken fewer than 20 words since arriving at the prison. Instead, he watched and listened. He learned that the Vraxians conquered other species for labor and resources. They believed themselves superior to all other life forms. As guards led Jack back to his cell, he passed through a large common area where lower-risk prisoners were allowed to gather. Most kept their distance from the Vraxian guards, who carried shock staffs and were quick to use them. A small blue-skinned alien approached Jack, moving carefully to avoid drawing the guard's attention. "New human," the alien whispered. "I am Nix, from Missouri System." Jack nodded slightly, but said nothing. "Vraxians think you weak," Nix continued. "Good, let them think this." Before Jack could respond, a guard shoved Nix away. "No talking to high-security prisoners." In his cell that night, Jack thought about Nix's words. The Vraxian's belief in his weakness might be an advantage. For the first time since his capture, he felt a small spark of hope. The next day, Jack was taken to a new area. It was a large chamber with observation windows along one wall. Inside the chamber were obstacles and equipment that looked like a training course. Kralthex stood with several other Vraxians behind the glass. "Today we test your endurance against other species," he announced through a speaker. Guards brought in prisoners of different species. There was a muscular, four-armed alien with red skin, a tall, slender being with what looked like feathers covering its body. And to Jack's surprise, Nix, "You will run the course until exhaustion," Kralthex explained. "We wish to compare recovery rates." The course was brutal. It involved climbing, crawling through narrow tunnels, lifting heavy objects, and running on a track where the gravity could be increased. The Vraxians watched with clinical interest, taking notes as each prisoner struggled through the challenges. The four-armed alien was strongest at lifting, but tired quickly. The feathered being was fast, but lacked strength. Nix was nimble, but small, and Jack kept going. Hours passed. The other prisoners collapsed one by one. Even the four-armed giant eventually fell to his knees, unable to continue, but Jack pushed on. His muscles burned. His lungs felt like fire. Sweat soaked his jumpsuit. Still, he continued. "Enough," Kralthex finally ordered. "The human specimen has demonstrated sufficient data." As guards led the exhausted prisoners back to their cells, Jack caught Nix's eye. The small alien gave him a subtle nod of respect. That night, Jack lay on the hard bed in his cell, muscles aching but mind active. The Vraxians had revealed something important. Humans had greater endurance than many other species. This was information he could use. When the lights dimmed to signal night cycle, Jack began a series of exercises. He had been a Navy man long enough to know how to stay fit in confined spaces. Push-ups, sit-ups, lunges, anything he could manage with the chains. He worked until his muscles trembled, then forced himself to do more. Days turned into weeks. Jack established a routine. During the day he endured the Vraxians' tests, seeming cooperative but revealing as little as possible. At night he exercised relentlessly, pushing his body to its limits. He also began testing his chains. Each night he would pull against them, feeling for any weakness. The chains were strong, but Jack noticed something when the metal warmed from his body heat. It became slightly more flexible. One day Jack was returned to the common area after testing. This time, the guards allowed him to remain there for an hour, watching how he interacted with other prisoners. Kralthex called it social behavior observation. Nix found him again, sitting beside Jack on a bench. "You are different from other humans they brought before," Nix said quietly. Jack raised an eyebrow. "There were others?" Nix nodded. "Few, not last long. Too soft for labor camps." Jack felt a pang of anger but kept his face neutral. "How long have you been here?" "2 cycles," Nix replied. "My people are peaceful, not good workers. Vraxians keep us for study." Jack leaned closer. "What can you tell me about this place?" "The guards, the systems?" Nix's large eyes darted around before answering. "Guards change at set times, 3 shifts each cycle. Main control center is north section, power core below." This was valuable information. Jack stored it away. "Prison designed for many species," Nix continued. "Some cells have special atmosphere. Some have gravity control." "What about security?" Jack asked. "Door controls need Vraxian handprint, guard patrols regular. Cameras everywhere, but blind spots exist." Their conversation was cut short when a guard approached. Jack and Nix moved apart, pretending they hadn't been talking. Back in his cell that evening, Jack went through his exercise routine with new determination. As he worked, he thought about what Nix had told him. A plan was forming in his mind, not an escape plan, not yet. First, he needed to be stronger. Much stronger. 2 months into his captivity, Jack noticed changes in his body. The constant exercise and the slightly higher gravity of Vrax Prime had built his muscles. He was leaner, but stronger than he'd ever been. The Vraxians noticed too. During one test, Kralthex commented to another scientist, "The human adapts physically at a surprising rate." "Is this concern?" asked the other scientist. Kralthex made the grinding laugh sound. "No, even at peak condition, humans are far weaker than Vraxians. This one is merely becoming a more efficient worker." That day, Jack was allowed another period in the common area. He found Nix looking thinner than before. They reduce food for my kind, Nix explained. Say we not productive enough? Jack shared his portion with the small alien. As they ate, Nix whispered, something happening. Guards talking about rebellion on Mining Moon. Vraxian's nervous. This was new. What kind of rebellion? Not no details, but guards increased, security tighter. Jack nodded. Unrest elsewhere might create opportunities here, or it might make things more dangerous. Stay strong, he told Nix, and keep your eyes open. As a guard called the end of common period, Nix whispered one last thing. Human Jack different. Human. Jack watches, waits like predator. Jack smiled slightly for the first time in months. That's right, he murmured. And every predator knows when to strike. 3 months had passed since Jack's capture. The prison routine had become familiar, but tension filled the air. The guards were on edge, patrolling more frequently and handling prisoners more roughly. The rebellion on the Mining Moon had the... Vraxian's worried. Jack continued his secret training. His body had changed dramatically. Beneath his loose prison jumpsuit, his muscles had grown dense and strong. Each night, he tested the chains, applying steady pressure, feeling for any weakness. During his time in the common area, Jack learned more about the prison from Nix and other prisoners. The facility held over 5,000 captives from more than 30 different worlds. Some had been there for years. None had ever escaped. One day, Kralthex arrived at Jack's cell with 6 guards. This was unusual. Normally, only 2 guards escorted him to the testing chambers. A special demonstration today, human, Kralthex announced. The High Commander of the Collective wishes to observe our specimens. Jack was taken to a large arena-like room he had never seen before. Rows of seats surrounded a central floor where several prisoners stood in chains. Jack was placed among them. In the front row sat an enormous Vraxian wearing elaborate armor with glowing symbols. This must be the High Commander. Beside him, Kralthex gestured toward the prisoners. As you can see, High Commander, we have collected useful specimens from many worlds. Each has qualities that serve the collective in different ways. The High Commander surveyed the prisoners with cold eyes. The mining rebellion has cost us. We need to increase production. These specimens must work harder. Some species resist. Despite conditioning, Kralthex explained, we have developed new methods to ensure compliance. Jack noticed Nix standing several places away, looking thinner than ever. Their eyes met briefly. Kralthex pointed to a hulking, tusked alien. This one led a work slowdown in Section 4. It requires correction. 2 guards approached the tusked prisoner who began to struggle. One guard activated a control panel and the prisoner's chains glowed blue. The alien fell to its knees, bellowing in pain. Our new restraints can deliver precise punishment, Kralthex explained proudly. Pain levels can be adjusted for each species. The High Commander nodded approvingly. And the human specimens? The ones sent to the northern. Mines died too quickly. This one is different, Kralthex gestured toward Jack. Remarkable endurance. We are studying what makes him superior to previous human captives. Jack kept his face blank as the High Commander studied him. It looks unremarkable, small, soft. Appearances deceive, High Commander. His strength-to-weight ratio is impressive, and his problem-solving abilities exceed most species we've encountered. A commotion from the far side of the arena interrupted them. One of the prisoners, a spindly alien with 6 limbs, had collapsed. That one is defective, the High Commander said dismissively. Remove it. Wait, said Nix suddenly. Every head turned toward the small blue alien. It needs water, different biology. The room went silent. Prisoners did not speak unless ordered to. Kralthex's S4 eyes blinked rapidly. This specimen forgets its place. Let me help, Nix continued, moving toward the fallen prisoner. A guard stepped forward, raising his shock staff. Return to your position. Nix hesitated, looking at the suffering prisoner. Please, it will die needlessly. The guard brought his staff down hard. Nix crumpled to the floor, blue body convulsing from the shock. Nix! Jack shouted, forgetting his self-imposed silence. The guard turned toward Jack, staff raised again. Silence, human. But Jack wasn't looking at the guard. He was watching as Nix's small body went still. Too still. The small one is dead, announced another guard after checking Nix. Unfortunate, Kralthex said without concern, but discipline must be maintained. Something broke inside Jack. Nix had been his only friend in this place, the only one who had shown him kindness. And now Nix was dead for simply trying to help another. The High Commander rose. Continue your work, Kralthex. I expect better results from the mines this cycle. He looked at Jack. This human interests me. Test its limits fully before sending it to labor. As the High Commander left, Kralthex approached Jack. Your reaction to the blue specimen's death is noted. Emotional attachment reduces efficiency. Jack looked directly into Kralthex's S4 eyes. You didn't have to kill him. It was defective. Disobedient specimens contaminate others. Kralthex studied Jack. You have been unusually compliant these 3 months. Perhaps seeing consequences has value. Jack said nothing more. Inside, his mind was racing. The plan he had been forming needed more time, but Nix's death changed everything. He couldn't wait any longer. As the prisoners were being returned to their cells, Kralthex stopped the guards escorting Jack. Bring this one to the special testing chamber, he ordered. I wish to try something. Jack was taken to a smaller room with a single metal chair in the center. The chair had restraints built into it. The guards pushed him into it, securing his arms and legs. Kralthex entered after the guards left. Your friend's death affected you. This is a weakness we must eliminate. He wasn't hurting anyone, Jack said quietly. Incorrect. Disobedience hurts the collective. Order must be absolute. Kralthex moved to a control panel. These restraints are our newest design. They can be programmed to test physical limits. Precisely, Jack tested the chair's restraints. They were even stronger than his cell chains. I have a proposition, human, Kralthex said. A simple test of will. If you can break free from these restraints, I will grant you special privileges. Better food, less testing. Jack looked up, suspicious. Why would you offer that? Kralthex made his grinding laugh. Because it is impossible. The restraints are designed for creatures 3 times your strength. Even Vraxians would struggle against them, and if I fail, then you accept your place? No more resistance? Complete compliance? Kralthex moved closer. I've seen how you watch the guards, study the facility. You plan something. This will prove the futility of such thoughts. Other Vraxians entered the room, gathering to watch. Some made gestures to each other, placing bets, Jack realized. How long should we give it? One asked. 5 minutes before. It gives up, another said. 3, said a third. Humans break easily. Jack closed his eyes. In his mind, he saw Nix's small body going still. He thought of Diane and Greg and the crew of the Horizon. He thought of all the prisoners suffering under Vraxian cruelty. 3 months of secret training. 3 months of testing his limits night after night. 3 months of learning everything he could about his captors. Jack opened his eyes and looked at Kralthex. I accept your challenge. The scientist stepped back. Begin the test. Jack took a deep breath. He knew he wouldn't get another chance. The Vraxians watched, some recording the event, others simply curious to see the human fail. Jack focused all his strength into his arms and pulled. The restraints creaked but held firm. The Vraxians began to laugh. See, impossible, Kralthex? Sod. Accept your place, human. Jack closed his eyes again. He thought of Navy training, of pushing past the point where most people would quit. He thought of the slightly higher gravity of Vrax Prime that had made him stronger day by day. He thought of Nix's last words to him. Human Jack different, like Predator. Something changed in the room. The monitoring equipment began to beep. Rapidly. Interesting, Kralthex said, looking at a display. Its hormone levels are spiking. Adrenaline, cortisol all rising beyond normal parameters. Jack roared with effort. Veins stood out on his neck and arms. And then a crack. The right restraint fractured slightly. The Vraxians stopped laughing. Impossible, one whispered with renewed determination. Jack pulled harder, another crack. Then another. The restraints were beginning to fail. Kralthex rushed to the control panel. Increase restraint power! But it was too late. With a final tremendous effort, Jack shattered the restraints on his arms. The room fell silent except for his heavy breathing. The Vraxians stared in shock as Jack reached down and broke the leg restraints too. He stood up slowly, facing his captors. Impossible, Kralthex whispered. No human could. Jack moved faster than any of them expected. He grabbed the nearest guard, taking his shock staff. Before anyone could react, he had knocked 2 guards unconscious. Alarms began to blare throughout the facility. The remaining Vraxians backed toward the door. You said if I broke free, I'd get privileges, Jack said, advancing on Kralthex. I'll take my freedom instead. Chaos erupted in the testing chamber. Alarms blared throughout the prison as Jack advanced on Kralthex, shock staff in hand. The scientist backed away, 4 eyes wide with disbelief. Guards! Kralthex shouted into a communication device on his wrist. Containment breach in testing chamber 6. Jack didn't give him time to say more. He swung the shock staff, hitting the device on Kralthex's wrist. Sparks flew as it shattered. That was for Nix, Jack said. 2 guards rushed through the door. Jack moved with speed that surprised even himself. 3 months of exercise and higher gravity had made him faster and stronger than he'd ever been. He ducked under the first guard's attack and struck with the shock staff. The guard fell, twitching. The second guard was more careful, circling Jack with weapon raised. Jack feinted left, then spun right. The guard wasn't prepared for the humans. Quickness. Jack's staff connected with the guard's knee joint, where he had noticed the armor was thinner. The guard dropped. Kralthex tried to reach the door. Jack blocked his path. How is this possible? The scientist hissed. No human has such strength. You never understood, Jack said. Our strength isn't just in our muscles, it's here. He tapped his head. And here. He placed his hand over his heart. More alarms joined the first. Red lights flashed in the corridor outside. Jack knew he had little time. He grabbed Kralthex by the throat. Where are the other human prisoners? Fear showed in all 4 of Kralthex's eyes. Northern Quadrant, cell block H. How many? 6. Maybe 7 still alive. Jack's grip tightened. Access codes for the security doors. Hand ... print only, Kralthex gasped. Vraxian biology required. Jack smiled grimly. Then you're coming with me. He forced Kralthex into the corridor, using the scientist as a shield. Guards appeared at the far end, weapons raised. Stay back, Jack shouted, or your chief scientist dies. The guards hesitated. Vraxians valued their scientists, especially one as senior as Kralthex. Take me to the central control hub, Jack ordered Kralthex. Impossible, the scientist replied. Security is too tight. Jack pressed the shock staff against Kralthex's neck. Find a way. They moved through the corridors, Jack keeping Kralthex between himself and any guards they encountered. The prison was in full lockdown now. Emergency barriers had lowered, in some passages forcing them to take detours. There, Kralthex pointed reluctantly to a side passage. Maintenance tunnels. Less guarded. Jack pushed the scientist forward. The maintenance tunnel was narrow, with pipes running along the walls. The ceiling was low, forcing the tall Vraxian to hunch uncomfortably. Why do this? Kralthex asked as they moved. You cannot escape. The planet is secured. There is nowhere to go. I'm not just escaping, Jack replied. I'm freeing everyone. Kralthex made his grinding laugh, though it sounded weaker now. Impossible? 5,000 prisoners? The security systems are too complex. We'll see. They emerged from the tunnel into a wider corridor. Through a window, Jack could see prisoners in their cells, looking confused by the alarms. Many pressed against their force fields, trying to see what was happening. How far to the control hub? Jack asked. 2 levels up, Kralthex replied. But it is heavily guarded. You will never... Jack cut him off. Less talking, more walking, they reached a lift at the end of the corridor. Kralthex placed his hand on the scanner. The doors opened. Inside the lift, Jack studied the control panel. Symbols he didn't recognize covered the buttons. Central hub, he ordered. Kralthex hesitated, then pressed a sequence of buttons. The lift began to rise. They will be waiting for us, the scientist warned. The High Commander has surely been notified by now, Jack nodded. I'm counting on it. The lift stopped. The doors opened to reveal 6 guards with weapons aimed directly at them. Release Chief Scientist Kralthex, one ordered. Surrender, human. Jack tightened his grip on Kralthex. I want to speak to the High Commander. The guards looked at each other, uncertain. The High Commander does not negotiate with prisoners, the lead guard said. Tell him I have information about the Mining Moon Rebellion, Jack bluffed. Information he needs to hear. After a moment, the lead guard spoke into a communication device. He listened, then looked back at Jack. The High Commander will see you. But the scientist stays here, Jack shook his head. He comes with me. More discussion through the communication device. Finally, the guard nodded. Follow. Any sudden moves and you die. They were led through a series of security checkpoints, Kralthex's handprint required at each one. Jack noted the layout, counting guards and identifying security cameras. Each detail might be useful later. They entered a large circular room. Screens covered the walls, showing different areas of the prison. In the center was a raised platform where the High Commander stood, watching their approach. The human who broke impossible restraints, the High Commander said. Impressive, but futile. Jack pushed Kralthex forward, keeping the shock staff at his neck. I want the release of all prisoners. The High Commander made the grinding laugh, louder than Kralthex's. You're in no position to make demands. I disagree. Jack moved toward one of the control panels. This is the central hub. From here, you control everything in the prison. And you think you can operate our technology? The High Commander sounded amused. Systems that took our finest minds centuries to develop? Jack smiled. No, but he can. He nodded toward Kralthex. I will do no such thing, the scientist protested. Jack leaned closer to him. Remember what I did to those restraints? Imagine what I could do to your neck. Kralthex's armor plate seemed to pale. You see, Jack said to the High Commander, I've learned a lot about Vraxian technology during my time here. Your systems are impressive, but they have one weakness. And what is that, human? They rely on Vraxian biology. Jack pushed Kralthex toward the main control panel. Open all cells. Guards moved closer, weapons ready. The High Commander raised a hand, stopping them. I am curious to see how far this goes. Kralthex hesitated, then placed his hand on the control panel. System access granted, announced a computerized voice. Now open all cells, Jack ordered. This is madness, Kralthex said. Even if you release them, where will they go? That's their choice. Freedom always is. Jack pressed the shock staff harder against the scientist's neck. Do it. Kralthex's hands moved over the controls. On the screens around the room, cell force fields began to disappear. Prisoners looked around. In confusion, then understanding, some immediately rushed out. Others helped those too weak to move. Now, broadcast a message to all cells, Jack said. What message? Kralthex asked. Jack leaned toward a microphone on the panel. Attention all prisoners. This is Jack Miller, human captive. The cells are open. The guards are outnumbered. Make your way to the hangar bay in the southern quadrant. Today we all go free. His voice echoed throughout the prison. On the screens, Jack could see prisoners beginning to move, gathering in groups, overwhelming surprised guards. The High Commander's calm demeanor finally broke. Enough! He signaled to his guards. Kill the human. Jack pulled Kralthex in front of him as weapons fired. The scientist screamed as energy blasts hit him instead of Jack. In the confusion, Jack dove behind a control panel. Guards rushed forward. Jack rolled, came up with the shock staff, and struck the nearest guard. He grabbed the fallen guard's weapon and fired at the others. Alarms blared even louder now. On the screens, Jack could see full-scale riots breaking out across the prison. Prisoners were fighting guards, taking weapons, moving in groups toward the southern quadrant as Jack had instructed. The High Commander backed toward an exit, barking orders into a communication device. Jack aimed the captured weapon and fired. The blast hit the wall near the High Commander's head, stopping him. "Your prisoners are leaving," Jack said, "and so am I." Through the windows of the control hub, Jack could see the prison was in complete chaos. After months or years of mistreatment, the prisoners were taking their revenge. Some Vraxian guards had abandoned their posts. Others fought desperately. Jack looked at the navigation screen. It showed the layout of the entire facility. The hangar bay was 3 levels down. If he could make it there, find a ship, turn to the injured Kralthex. "One more thing, where are the other humans?" The scientist pointed weakly to a section of the screen. "Cell Block H Northern Quadrant," Jack nodded. He needed to find them before reaching the hangar. He wouldn't leave without them. "This isn't overhuman," the High Commander growled. Jack backed toward the exit, weapon raised. "You're right, it's just beginning." Jack moved quickly through the chaotic prison corridors. The weapon he had taken from the guard was unfamiliar but effective. He kept to the shadows when possible, using the confusion of the riot to his advantage. The map he had seen in the control hub was clear in his mind. Cell Block H, Northern Quadrant. That's where the other humans were being held. Groups of freed prisoners ran past him. Some nodded in recognition. Word had spread that a human had started the rebellion. Jack pointed them toward the southern hangar bay. "Find a ship," he shouted to a group of the stronger aliens. "Get it ready to launch." 2 Vraxian guards appeared around a corner. Jack fired his weapon before they could raise theirs. Both fell. He didn't check if they were dead or just unconscious. There was no time. He reached a junction where the corridor split. Left would take him to the hangar bay. Right led to the northern quadrant. Jack turned right without hesitation. The northern section was quieter. Most prisoners had already fled toward the southern hangars. Jack moved more carefully now, checking each intersection before proceeding. A small group of prisoners appeared, led by a tall, crystal-like being. They stopped when they saw Jack. "You're the human," the crystal being said in a voice like chimes. "The one who freed us." Jack nodded. "I'm looking for other humans. Cell Block H." "We just came from there," the crystal being replied. "Follow. The corridor, 3rd door on the left, but hurry. The Vraxians are regrouping." Jack thanked them and continued. He could hear the sounds of fighting in distant parts of the prison. The rebellion was in full swing, but he knew the Vraxians would eventually bring in reinforcements. He found Cell Block H and entered cautiously. The cells were open, but not empty. Some prisoners were still here, too weak or afraid to leave. "Hello?" Jack called. "Any humans here?" A thin voice answered from the back. "Here!" Jack rushed to the cell. Inside were 4 humans, 3 men, and 1 woman. They were gaunt, with hollow eyes and pale skin. The Vraxians had worked them nearly to death. "I'm Lieutenant Jack Miller, Earth Navy," he said. "Can you walk?" One of the men nodded weakly. "Pete Lawson, this is Olivia Rhodes, Sam Garcia, and Ben King. We can walk, barely." Jack helped them up one by one. "We need to get to the hangar bay. There's a ship waiting." "A ship?" Olivia asked. Her voice was hoarse from disuse. "We're really getting out of here?" "Yes," Jack promised. "Today." He gave Pete his captured weapon and took another from a fallen guard outside. They moved slowly, the 4 weakened humans leaning on each other for support. "How did you do it?" Sam asked as they walked. "The Vraxians said no one ever escapes." "They underestimated humans," Jack replied simply. They were halfway to the hangar when a squad of Vraxian guards blocked their path. Jack and Pete raised their weapons. "Go back," shouted a voice from behind the guards. A group of freed prisoners appeared, armed with stolen weapons. They fired at the guards, creating a path. "Hurry, human!" called a 4-armed alien Jack recognized. From the testing arena. "We hold them here." Jack nodded his thanks and led his group past the fighting. More and more freed prisoners joined them. forming a protective circle around the humans. The hangar bay doors were in sight when the lights suddenly dimmed. Emergency power kicked in, bathing everything in red. "Lockdown protocol," warned a prisoner with technical knowledge. "They're sealing the hangars." Jack increased his pace, half carrying Olivia, who was the weakest of the group. The hangar doors were slowly closing. They would never make it in time. Then the doors stopped moving. The control panel beside them sparked. "I damaged it," shouted a small, insect-like prisoner who had been working on the panel. But not for long. Jack and the others rushed through the gap. Inside the hangar bay, chaos reigned. Prisoners were trying to board various ships. Vraxian pilots fought to protect their vessels. The air was filled with energy blasts. A sleek transport ship sat near the center of the hangar, its ramp down. A group of larger aliens were holding position around it, fighting off Vraxian security forces. "There," Jack pointed. "That's our way out." They ran for the ship. Pete fired at a Vraxian who tried to block their path. The four-armed alien appeared, again joining their group. "I know how to fly Vraxian ships," it told Jack. "I was a pilot before capture." "Then you're our pilot now," Jack replied. They reached the ship and hurried inside. The interior was designed for Vraxians with controls and seats too large for humans. But that didn't matter now. The four-armed alien took the pilot's seat. Other prisoners poured in behind them, filling every available space. The ship was designed for 30 Vraxians. More than 50 prisoners of various species crowded inside. "Can we fly with this many?" Jack asked. The pilot's four hands moved. Over the controls, "We fly or we die." The ship's engines roared to life. Outside, more Vraxian reinforcements were entering the hangar. Energy blasts hit the ship's hull. "Shields at 60%, reported a prisoner who understood the ship's systems. "We need to leave now." The pilot nodded and pulled back on the controls. The ship lifted off the hangar floor. More blasts hit them, rocking the vessel. "Shields at 40%. Jack looked out a viewport. The hangar bay doors above them were closed. "We need those doors open." The pilot pointed to a weapons console. "Main cannon, target the doors." Jack moved to the console, figuring out the controls quickly. He targeted the center of the hangar bay doors and fired. The blast tore through the metal, creating a hole not big enough. The pilot shouted. Jack fired again and again. The hole widened. Alarms blared throughout the hangar as atmosphere began to vent into space. "Hold on," the pilot called. The ship surged upward, scraping through the opening. Metal screeched against metal as they barely fit through, and then they were out. Soaring away from the prison into open space, cheers erupted throughout the ship. Jack helped the other humans to seats, making sure they were secure. "We did it," Olivia whispered, tears in her eyes. "We're free." Warning lights flashed on the control panel. The pilot's expression changed. "What is it?" Jack asked. "Vraxian warships," the pilot replied. 3 of them, moving to intercept. The celebration stopped. Jack moved to the viewport. In the distance, he could see the shapes of larger ships approaching. "How fast is this transport?" he asked. "Not fast enough," the pilot answered honestly. Jack thought quickly. During his time in prison, he had learned much about the Vraxians, including their tactics. They were predictable, relying on superior firepower rather than strategy. "Can we send a transmission?" he asked. A prisoner at the communications console nodded. "Send on all frequencies," Jack ordered, "and plot a course for the edge of the system." The pilot looked at him questioningly but did as asked. The ship changed direction, engines straining at maximum power. Jack leaned over the communications console. "This is Lieutenant Jack Miller of Earth. To any human vessels in range, we are escaped prisoners from Vrax Prime, being pursued by 3 Vraxian warships. We have 32 species on board, including 5 humans. Request immediate assistance." The message sent, Jack turned to the weapons console again. "Let's see what this ship can do." The Vraxian warships were closing fast. The first shots flew past their transport, near misses that rocked the ship. "They're toying with us," the pilot said. "They could destroy us instantly," They want us alive, Jack replied. New prisoners to replace the ones that escaped. A new light appeared on the sensor display. Then another, and another, more ships, the pilot said. But not Vraxian, different configuration. The communication console beeped. A voice came through, speaking English. Lieutenant Miller, this is Captain Olivia Bell of the Earth vessel Defiance. We received your distress call. Hold your position. We are engaging the Vraxian ships. Cheers erupted again, louder this time. Through the viewport, Jack could see Earth ships moving to intercept the Vraxians. The distress signal he had sent from the horizon 3 months ago had not been ignored after all. We're going home, Jack told the other humans. Then he turned to the aliens who had escaped with them. And you're coming with us. Earth will want to hear about the Vraxian collective. Pete clasped Jack's shoulder. How did you know help would come? Jack smiled. I didn't. But humans don't abandon their own. As Earth ships engaged the Vraxian warships, Jack thought about his journey, from captive to leader of a prison break. The Vraxians had mocked him, chained him, and thought him weak. Their mistake. Jack looked out at the stars, free once more. The Vraxians would remember this day. They would remember the human who shattered his chains and walked free, and they would never underestimate humanity again.